Hey there. Welcome, guys, to another conversation on creating your perfect work. If you know me, I'm Renessa Boley Layne, and I'm always about how to support you in discovering, designing, and getting highly paid to do work that you love. And today I am like fired up about this guest, Gina Fresquez. Am I saying it correctly?
Yes.
Fresquez. Okay. And I meant to ask, like, let me make sure I get it right. But it's Gina Fresquez, and I knew I was going to get it wrong. But I'm so excited to have her. I handpicked her. I'm so excited about everything that she's going to talk about. And today is all about the side hustle. And if you're a woman who is in that place where you're thinking about making a radical shift, and if that radical shift for you looks like stepping into entrepreneurship or bringing a big message, to the marketplace, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be doing that in addition to a 9 to 5 or a 9 to 7 or a 9 to 9, depending on how demanding that role might be. And, or at least if you're smart, you'll probably do it while you have the security of a role. And how we do that, from the way that we tap into our goals to the way we actually execute them, like there is a brilliance and a flow and an ease and a fulfillment that can happen when you're building a business, that if you do it right, it's like magic. If you do it like I did it, it could be like hell. So I brought Gina on because I want her to show us how to do it like magic. So that you can be so much more fulfilled and so much at ease and so much happier in that process. And so I'm actually going to welcome Gina. I'm so excited that you're here and you're sharing with us. But then I'm also going to turn it over to her because I want her to introduce herself to you, and then we're going to dive in with some great stuff. So have your pen and paper handy, because we're going to rock it with some great nuggets and some great tools that are really going to amplify how you step into this new business and how you grow it, but also how you're able to do it with such ease and flow and grace and fulfillment and all that other good warm and fuzzy stuff. Cool? So hey, Gina.
Hey, so glad to be here.
So glad that you're here.
Awesome. So Gina Fresquez, you said it right. I get that question a lot.
After 3 shots, but yeah.
Yes, no, it's a hard one. And basically, in a nutshell, I'm a speaker and author, but mostly a success and leadership coach for ambitious entrepreneurs. I've been helping women start side hustles probably for about 7 or 8 years, and doing it in a way that feels good, like you said. So I too have a burnout story and how I learned how to get started the wrong way, and quickly learned how to do it in a way that feels good to me. And I side hustled myself for 5 years on purpose, which a lot of people go, what? Why would you do that? But there was a time in my life when I loved all the work I was doing in the world, and I just wanted to figure out how to fit it all in. So in addition to my main work that I was doing, in addition to my side hustle that I was doing, that was my passion, and I was also becoming a mom, like there's so many things we can just keep on adding to our plate and taking on more responsibilities. And one of the things that I say is sometimes something's got to give, and we don't want it to be you, right? That's how burnout happens. And so there comes a time when you really have to set your priorities and really look at what you're chasing and how you're chasing it to make sure that in the end, you don't get burnt out, right? In the end, you haven't sacrificed everything, your health, your relationships, your lifestyle, your sanity in the process. Because I think that's what happens, right? Sometimes we get to our goal and we're like, what the heck happened? Like you see this blazing fire behind you that you created versus, in a way that you can do it a little bit better.
No, awesome. So tell us a little bit about your burnout story, because I think folks, oftentimes when we hear people and they're featured and they're speakers, we always think they can do it. They don't understand what my situation was. And sometimes we just need to nod our head because it's like, oh, she totally gets us. And so I want the folks to know that you get them. She gets you. And so tell us a little bit about your story, because really your story is my story, but go ahead and share.
Yeah. Well, I had the lovely benefit of burning out twice. Once when I was just in corporate America, like we all do, fresh out of grad school, just like hitting the pavement, like you said, working those, 8 to 7s and things like that. And that was my first experience with burnout, but that was I was only working. When I got to the point when I wanted to create something new. So some of your listeners and audience, when you're like, what I'm doing right now is not fulfilling me, and I want more control over something. I want something that I'm more passionate about. That's when I started my own business, originally as a health coach, actually. And my old corporate career, I was traveling a lot. So I was in sales and traveling a whole region, which allowed me to have a little bit of freedom, right? To be able to create a business when I'm working remotely. But as I was traveling, building my business, working with clients, not even a mom at that point, I actually like burnt completely down as far as I was a health coach, but I wasn't actually practicing health coaching on myself. I mean, you're on the go. I was not sleeping. I ended up having like cystic acne. My hormones started being messed up. I was sleeping like 8 to 10 hours a day, a night, but not feeling rested. So all the signs of adrenal fatigue that we experience, to the point where I just couldn't wake up in the morning. But I also was extremely hard on myself. And I think that as you identify with the ambitious woman, we are so freaking hard on ourselves, right? We push ourselves to the degree of not letting ourselves rest, not taking a day just for you. And I was a complete mess. I mean, this is that story where I think I talk about it actually in my book, where it's that war in your head. Where you're like, I have so much to do, but I only want to rest, but I have so much to do. Right. And that's really what brought me to, all the health issues that were happening, where I finally actually discovered a book that was kind of life-changing for me, which was the Desire Map, which is how I started it kind of shaked me to my core as far as just how I was doing everything and how I was approaching everything. I was a big ball of stress, to be honest. I had to go through some stress management courses, and I actually had a stress coach at the time. Like, I literally had to rewire how I was doing things. And the Desire Map in that process was so profound for me that now I actually teach that method, which is basically how to reverse engineer your goals so that you do it in a way that feels good. You put the feelings first. And that's how it's crazy how one book or like one moment can change how you do things, but it really shifted my perspective and how I chase my goals, how I set my goals, how I check in with myself to feel better.
No, I think that's awesome. And what I want to cover in this conversation, because we have lots of conversations that talk about different aspects of what it takes to create work you love, right? And so there's some conversations where people are asking themselves the questions on getting really, really clear and honing in on what's my purpose? What am I meant to do? Is it a career? Is it a business? Is it a movement of some kind? That's not necessarily what this conversation is about as much as it is about the process. Because when we're trying to make that leap or thinking about that leap, one of the biggest issues is, can I really take on any more? Like, you are the professional, you have a responsibility to deliver on the job. You might be a mom, you might be a spouse, you might be someone's daughter or sister or friend, and we take on all these roles and we take them seriously and with integrity, but they all cost. And at any point in time, while you want to do all things well, it's inevitable that some things are going to bleed, right? Yeah. And so what we want to talk about in this conversation is, how do you then determine what bleeds, right? And then how do you also create a pathway such that you're able to do this with ease and stress-free? Because as I think about, I look at, no pain, no gain, sacrifice now, celebrate someday, sleep. Yes. I can sleep when I'm dead. Like, those are the mantras of like the badass woman that's out there. And then you find them laid out in the corner someplace,
Yeah, I don't like any of those. Like, I'll just say that, like, I do not agree. Like, because I've done that, right? Yeah. I think and I'm so glad you brought all of those up, because those, yes, that like there is the amount of hustle that we do have to do when we create something new. Yeah. But, like you said, at the sacrifice of what? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that you brought up all those.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the fact that there is a way to be able to go out there and kick butt and take names and achieve at the heights, whatever that level of success is for you. And you're able to do it in a way where there's ease, and that you're able to really enjoy that process. That's critical. So let's start to unpack that a little bit, because one of the things that you talk about is this whole concept of soulful goals. And for some of us on the call, that could be like a tall drink of water. Like you're like, oh. And then for other people, because we have different belief systems around what it takes to get where we want to go, or what it takes to be the kind of leader we want to be, or, whatever, there may be some resistance around that concept. That might seem weak, or that might seem too feminine, or that might not seem like it has a place in business. So tell us a little bit about the concept of soulful goals and why, from your perspective, it's actually an asset and a place of strength when it comes to women stepping into entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So soulful goals, it does sound a little fluffy when you first talk about it. But it's funny, I've even talked about this on the corporate level too. So really the soulful goals journey is about discovering how you want to feel and basing your goals around that. Because the theory behind it is, why are we chasing these goals in the first place? Okay. When we really think about whatever goal you're chasing, whether that's starting a new business, making a certain amount of money, buying a car, buying a house, going on vacation, it doesn't matter. Really, when you think about it, we don't really want the thing. We really want what we think that thing will make us feel.
Yeah.
Right? It will make us feel expansive, abundant, safe, comforting, like whatever we think that is going to make us feel. That is actually the root of what we're chasing. This is why when people win the lottery, they don't end up, you hear all those stories of people just blowing their money, or they didn't actually change their life. Yeah. Because, it wasn't the actual money that they wanted. They hadn't taken it further. What can you actually do with this? How do you feel? And this is where you can actually reverse engineer your big goals to go, wow, if I had that, how would that make me feel? Even if you've never had it before, you can still think about, envision into it and go, wow, if I had that, I would maybe feel this way. Maybe my life would change in this way. And then how would that make me feel? So you have to take it a step further than the goal. The goal itself is this benchmark, but take it further. What is that really doing for you? How is that making you feel? And is it going to make you feel free? Is it going to make you feel like you're giving back? Is it going to, it just, there's so many more lovely words that we're actually chasing than the actual thing. And that's what I call reverse engineering. So you start with your big goal and you can go back and say, wow, I actually think that I wanted to feel this way. Or if you actually achieve it and you figure out that you don't actually think you'd feel like you thought you would, that's a clear indicator that maybe that's not the right goal that you should be chasing. Maybe that's a goal that somebody placed on you instead, or, what society thinks you want to do, or something, right? I mean, who knows? There's a long laundry list of that. And so that's kind of the basis of it. So soulful goal setting is basically a feelings-based approach to goal setting and figuring out, one, how you would feel if you achieve those goals, but you can actually start from the beginning and go through all these different areas of your life and feel, okay, how do I actually want to feel? Which most people don't ask that, right? It's a question that, especially as women, we never get asked, well, how do you want to feel? We usually know how we feel right now, which if you're burnt out, you're stressed, you're feeling tight, you're feeling we know how to clearly say that, right?
Yeah.
But if we take those opposites, like you said, the ease, the flow, ease is one of my big one, right? Letting things come to me, working in my zone of genius, knowing what I'm really good at, right? These are the things that help me achieve more ease, clarity, freedom, connection. For me, connection's a really big one, right? So feeling connected to people around me. I'm an extrovert. So, needing people and communication is something that I strive for. So if I now know how I want to feel, then I can start actually picking goals and achievement and success based off of those things.
Interesting.
So does that make sense?
Yep.
So then you can use it as a guidance saying, well, if I actually pursued this goal, started this business, this new business opportunity, would that take me closer to feeling the way I want to feel or further away?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So why is the feeling base, what makes that powerful? Like what makes that? Because again, I'm thinking of the woman who's listening, and maybe they're listening for the first time and they're hearing this for the first time, and they're thinking, what the hell does my feeling have to do with whether or not I can hit that 6-figure goal, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of us are trained to, it doesn't matter how you feel. You go and you nail it. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not. You just do it. That's why some of us are in roles for 10, 15, 20 years, knowing from the I knew from the very beginning that when I was 17 years old as an intern at a technology company, I knew I did not want to be an engineer. I knew it.
Right.
However, several years later, I'm still, doing my thing. And so what is it? Why are the feelings so powerful, and how do they align to your success?
Well, I'm a firm believer that if you're trying to push against something that is not feeling good, that if you do achieve it, it's not going to feel how you think it's going to feel.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like rolling that boulder up the hill and praying that you don't take a step back and it doesn't roll back on you.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of letting something just flow and push and be pulled into something
Mm-hmm.
that feels really good, as far as, and now feelings get a bad rap, right? Because in corporate, it's like, well, you don't have your feelings in the way. And so we can talk about feelings just as a base of emotion for humans. Like we're human beings, we have emotion. So what are we feeling? What do we want to be feeling? And I really like to describe it as a compass. So if you have these feelings down on a compass and you're guiding you to making decisions, yes to this, no to this, should I pursue this? Should I not pursue that? And that's how I use it as a system to guide me closer and to actually know what I should pursue, because it's all not sunshine and rainbows. We do have to do work. We, we don't just get to sit back and, drink coffee all day. Like, so if I know that goal, when I achieve it, is going to make me feel ease and freedom and connection, which are my top three, then I'm going to work hard to achieve it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Versus, if I was given an opportunity to go after something, but it would make me feel less connected, or it would make me feel more anxious, or it would put me in a position that I don't think I would feel confident in, then I would say no to that. So it's actually more of a decision-making tool on how to pursue your goals in a different way. Yeah. So, and it can be black and white, even though feelings feel very, like you said, feminine or whatever, but we all have them. Many times we try to shove them down and hide them, but they're there. And I still think there's an element of putting your head down and going after your goal that needs to take place. But it's like, well, gosh, if you finally got to that goal and you're like, like you get that promotion at work or something, and you're like, I thought this was going to feel differently. That's to me a big red flag that you're probably pursuing something that doesn't feel right for you. Yeah.
And I think it's what's great about it is that there's lots of roads that lead to success.
Yes.
There are lots of ways. So for those of you who are thinking about building a business or your business, you can Google 15 different gurus and they will give you 15 different ways to make your business grow.
Yes.
Oh, you should run Facebook ads. Oh, you should go be a speaker. Oh, you should write a book. Oh, you should sell products online and be location independent in Thailand as you're raking in the dough. Oh, you should be networking. Oh, you should, speak at companies. Oh, you should be on TV. Like there's all kinds of ways in which you could build your business. And the reality is they all work.
Yes.
But they may not all work for you.
Yes.
Right?
I love that you're saying this. Yes.
And so so the mistake that I made when I started my business, one, I wasn't clear on what the heck I was supposed to be doing in the world. So that's a whole nother interview. But in the process of building that thing, I was just following people and I was following their success. And I'm a great imitator. Like if you show me the blueprint, I will 150% commit to that and do that thing. But I did not assess how that felt for me.
Yeah.
There are things that are truly just natural to my core and who I am. And then there were things where I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
Yes.
And because it was so difficult, like I would push through, but it didn't feel great. So there was lots of elements of procrastination, or I wouldn't step up really in the fullness of my authority because at the end of the day, I didn't really want it. And I knew that when I got it, it wasn't going to be all that great anyway, but I'm about that money, right?
Yes.
And so this conversation is helping you to give some credence to the GPS, which is, how do I really feel about this?
Yeah. Because
sometimes the answer is no, just because that doesn't feel good. Yeah. And I have the freedom to not feel like crap. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say no thank you to that. And I'm going to open myself up to an avenue that actually might catapult my success even faster because now I'm in flow.
Yes. And I love that you said that because that is, like I hate these analogies people use, but there's so many ways to eat an elephant or whatever, right? And I use that a lot when we say building a business, especially as a side hustle. Like you said, some people are just chasing all the different ways that all the gurus have been saying. Yep. And it really gives you that permission to say, you know what, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it in a way that feels good to me. There are, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because it really is this way to say yes or no to those things and utilize your zone of genius. What are you really good at? Right.
Yeah.
And then say yes to those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was interesting. I had a client who's doing some really, really cool stuff, but she had this hang up about what she thought she wanted to do, because in her mind, in order to do it, she had to get on Facebook and social media, and she had to start being this influencer and do these Facebook lives and do blah, blah, blah. And she was like, I just don't want to do that. I'm not even on social media. And I'm not sure if I can even build this business if I have to do X, Y, and Z. And the reality that, no, you don't have to do something that just feels like it sucks, like you have a choice. It just opened wide. Like, there's a lot of ways we can do this thing. Now, that doesn't mean everything's going to feel great, right? Sometimes you got to just do what you have to do as a means to an end. But when that means becomes an end and that feels awful, then it's time to pull up and think about it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So definitely. I think, so as you even set your goals and how you begin to organize your day, how you want to feel on any given day, that's your fuel, man. That's going to determine whether or not you're attracting people, because people want to work with folks that elevate them. And so if you're not in that space, if you're always in this other tip, you're going to find that people are not going to support you, or they're not going to align with you, or they're not going to partner with you, or they're not going to recommend you. And so there's a lot of that's an undercurrent, and it's not about talent and skill. It has a lot about what is that vibration, for lack of a better word, that we're putting out there. And part of that has to do with how we set goals and whether those goals align with how we naturally want to show up in the marketplace. And it may sound woo-woo, but it's a secret sauce, right?
It is, because there's an energy there. If you were forcing yourself to show up and do a Facebook Live every day, but you are a total introvert and you're having a hard, like, it's going to be felt, right? But maybe you love writing articles, so you can reach people in so many different ways and show up more authentically when you follow what feels good. Like you said, there's kind of a range of things to choose from. And I feel like that's where you really stand in your power. That's when you become more vibrational, more magnetic to your audience, when you can really start making those choices based off of your intuition, or whatever you want to call it, on what feels good for you.
Okay. So let's give folks a practical way. So let's say you're stepping into a business, or you're beginning to design a business, and you're trying to figure out what vehicle you're going to use, or what marketing you're going to do. Let's just use that as an example. So again, marketing, you can do social media ads, you can do, all kinds of things. You can do direct mail, you can write, you can speak, you can do all kinds of things. You can sell a product. There's all kinds of ways you can market your business. How can we use what you're talking about in terms of Soulful Goal to be able to then decide or influence how we strategize for our business? Yes.
Well, let's go forward with knowing that maybe you already know your core desired feelings, which is how you want to be feeling. So for mine are joy, ease, freedom, and connection. Okay. So I'm just going to use mine as an example. So say I'm going to go market my new business and what I want to be doing. There's kind of this wonderful, magical spot where your core desired feelings and what you're good at. Right. So knowing your personality, you probably have other people on this, program talking about how to find your purpose, how to find what you're really good at, things like that. So once you know that, and you kind of know your communication style, you kind of go to that wonderful place where those work when it comes to marketing. Right. So I know personally, I love connection, and mine's ease. And I love talking. So I'm a talker. So when I went to start marketing my business, I knew I wanted to do a podcast. So I started with a podcast, which funneled into a community, because I love creating community. That to me was connection. That was a lot of ease and joy that led me to just creating a community where then I could talk about how I could help them, which is how I sold my products or my services, right? Versus I have clients who do very similar stuff than what I do, but they do not want to talk. They are not a talker. They are more of a writer. And so their strategy might be to write, especially if you have no audience, right? Their strategy might be to guest blog, or publish articles on Medium or Elephant Journal or things like that, where they can drive more traffic to their website from an organic source. Things like that, where even though I'm an author, I do have a book out there, I don't really identify with being a writer. I don't have a blog that I write in every week. I'm really bad at my newsletter, keeping up with that. I mean, let's be honest, I don't write a whole lot. And so I really don't use that as one of my main vehicles for marketing. I don't do a blog. I don't write articles and send them off to publications. It's just not my forte, because to me, that is a whole lot of work, and it's a lot harder for me. So I'm looking for communication and connection. I'm looking for ease, if for ways that I can market my business. So I do a lot of Facebook Lives, right? So for me, if you know kind of that zone of genius and how you love to freely talk about what you need to do, you do it that way. I have a client, she gets all of her leads off of Yelp. She has no social media presence whatsoever. I mean, in this day and age, you're blown away by, she has a really awesome Yelp page, and she's a life coach, and she is always booked and has a waiting list, which is crazy. And she's never on social media. And so it just gives you another example of how you can do it really. And she's more introverted. She doesn't really like being bothered. She hates social media. So again, let's not force her to do it, because it would not feel good if she did it. So it's just another way of how there's so many different ways to go about it in what feels good to you and what is aligned with making those decisions.
No, I think that's awesome. And so if there's no other takeaway from this part of the conversation, other than the feelings matter. Yeah. And there's money in your emotion. Yes. There's money in your emotion, because it is going to be for you the fastest way to the cash, and the way that you're actually able to enjoy the journey, which is why we want the cash anyway. Like it's right. We want the money for all the things that it can provide for us and all the ways that we're able to give. So why not integrate that into how we begin to build?
Yeah, it really helps you just go with the flow a lot more if you're using that.
The other reason why I really wanted Gina on this conversation is because she's really good about how you build, and building in a way that A, feels good, but B, there's flow, right? And so we talked a little bit about the emotional side. Now I want to talk a little bit more about the practice and the practicals. And I ate up in a good way, a lot of her content. And I was like, yes, these are great tips and these are great tools. And Gina's really good about time, and how do you not just manage your time from like a little system, but really how do you honor your time, and how do you use time to your advantage so that you can feel great as you succeed and you grow and you build. Right. Yes. And so she went through a number of different tips that I thought were really awesome, that if you're thinking about stepping into entrepreneurship and you're getting a side hustle, these tips are going to make the hustle part of the side hustle so much easier, so much more doable, so you don't lose yourself. And these are things that, man, I wish I had known before I left my corporate job. I wish I had known when I left my corporate job. I wish I had known when my first business failed. I wish I had known when the next business was succeeding and I was still kind of busted, broken, and burned out. Like, I wish I had known some of these things. And one of the tips that you mentioned, Gina, was about writing your non-negotiables. And you talk about building your life around the things that are important to you, as opposed to squeezing the things that are important to you in whatever little free space you have as you're building the business. Yeah. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So your non-negotiables obviously are things that, you're not willing to budge on. And let's be honest, those things change over time, right? In the different seasons of life, like before I was a mom versus now I'm a mom, right? And so really though, we're looking at, there's some analogies with like big rocks, but there's things that are really important in your life, whether that's self-care, a certain relationship that you're working on, your business, or something else. And we really want to, when we look at our goals, especially when you're starting something new, what are you not willing to compromise, right? Because we all talk about balance, and we all talk about trying to balance it all and have all the things, but we really can't. I mean, really, like if you're going to put more emphasis on something else has got to give, right? And so there's a give and a take. And so what I usually do before I roll forward into something is like, what am I not willing to budge on? What are my non-negotiables that I'm still holding true towards that are really most essential for me, because balls are going to be dropped. Like, let's be honest, right? Like we try to do it all. We try to have everything. But and you try to do all the things, but you have to focus on a certain amount of things that really are worth more to you. And I think that's where we put more focus on. And so writing those down and keeping those as like your beacons to make sure that those don't get taken away from you. Because if we focus on all the little things, those are going to take up that space.
Yeah.
And so whether that's your family, like if family is non-negotiable for you and you want to make sure that even though you're building a business on the side, you still want to make sure that you have, every Sunday with your family or, whatever that you're deciding to do, make it a priority, because everything else will infringe on all of that, right? If you don't make it a priority.
Yep. So like so practically what that could mean is because again, if you are going to start a business as a side hustle, there are some things that are going to bleed. They just have to. You don't have a choice. You just got to decide what they are, and you have to be willing and at peace to let them go, right?
Yes.
But then there are
be upfront about them.
And be okay with that. But then there are things that do not bleed. So for instance, maybe for you, it is that every Sunday afternoon, the whole Sunday afternoon is dedicated to you and your family. Maybe you guys do brunch and you have the afternoon and this and that. That means that in your calendar, it is literally like physically blocked off. It's not in your mind, because if it's in your mind, if someone has this great idea or they're going to pitch you this opportunity or whatever, and they happen to be in town and it's on a Sunday, you're going to make it happen. But if it truly is a non-negotiable, then you figure out another way. I can't do Sunday afternoon. I can do Sunday morning, or I can do Saturday afternoon. But when you look at your calendar, that's unavailable. Yeah. Or if working out is non-negotiable for you, that's the date that you have with Sean T and T25 or Insanity or whoever it is that you work with. That is the date that you have every day at 5:30 a.m. or 6 a.m. or 4 p.m. or whatever that time is for you. It's non-negotiable, which means that I've got a plan for my evening. I got to go to bed at X, Y, and Z because I got a date in the morning at whatever. Or whatever those, or if it's, in the middle of the day, my lunch hour, this is the time that I've dedicated to whatever business course that I'm doing. And so I know that at work, this is not the time with the coworkers. This is not the time for lunch. So when people are like, hey, let's get together. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not available because this is not. So these are the things that begin to fit. And they're not just what do you call it? Obligations. It's the things that fill you up.
Yes.
And for me,
that will make sure you don't burn out. Yeah.
People they used to ask me, well, what do you like to do, outside of work, or what are your hobbies? And I was like, I don't have any. Like, I don't, and I love to dance, and I like to, do choreography. And there's lots of things that I like to do. I like tennis, and I could have done all of those things, but they were not non-negotiable for me.
Right.
They were, if I ever have a spare moment,
it'd
which
be nice.
I never had. Right.
Yeah.
And so there were lots of things that I lost along the way that could have helped to balance emotionally, physically, and otherwise. Yeah. And I was so one-dimensional, and I paid such a price for that.
Yeah.
So this is a strategy that helps you to kind of build that up.
Yeah. And there's a tip that kind of goes along with that, which is the schedule brings freedom. So like when you write down everything and schedule down everything, you mentioned that, like if you have these non-negotiables, I always tell everybody, put everything on your calendar. Like, even if it's something fun, even if it's a stretch break, even if it's whatever you need to do, put it on your calendar and color code it or do whatever you think you need to do. Because that, again, if people think that when you put too much down, it feels rigid, but it actually builds you more freedom when you start putting more of these breaks, more of these non-negotiables in your calendar, because then it actually blocks it off for anything else to come into it. So we don't just think about it or slide into different spots that make us feel like we're in that gray area that we're balancing a bunch of stuff, when it just puts it down on paper and it just is solid. And there's a lot of freedom in that, because it's there, and then you don't have to think about it. When we try to hold it all in here is when it just kind of falls apart. And to me, if you put it down on paper, it's there. It's on a calendar. You don't have to think about it anymore, which there's freedom in that too.
Yeah, I agree. There's a freedom in the focus too.
Yeah. And not having to think about all the balls in the air in your head. They're down on paper. You can put them down and move on.
Got it.
Yeah.
Another thing that you talked about is this idea of delegating. And, corporate women know how to delegate or know the idea of delegating. We don't always do it so well. But let's talk about delegation as it relates to you building a business. Because I will tell you, this is the place where I had got major epic fail. Just fail. Not even D-, just F.
Big
right?
F.
So tell us about that and why that's so critical if you're going to build a side hustle.
Yes. So this one, I feel like most women don't do as early as they should, right?
Mm-hmm.
They think, again, when I achieve this, then I will XYZ, hire the XYZ. But I like to tell people, well, let's flip that on your head, because if you work full time, you have family obligations. Now you're trying to start a side hustle. You only have so much time.
Yeah.
And so if you can zone in on where you're creating income in your business, right? Your zone of genius, how you make money, and let other things take care of for you. So what I joke, but this isn't a joke. Most of the people that I help get started, I say, first thing you should do, hire a house cleaner, which people don't think of like a business thing, right? But it's like, how much time do you spend cleaning your house? You know, and if you're a busy working woman, you know, you on a Saturday, you're like, I'm going to get up and spend 4 hours cleaning your house or your apartment. And that is really essential. If you spent 2 hours cleaning your apartment, that is essential time that you could be working on your business. Right. And so the little, you know, people think that, oh, you know, it's a luxury to have a house cleaner or something like that. It's really not. If you think about how they can come in really quickly. I've negotiated with house cleaners as far as what to do, just do the jobs that you hate doing. Right. And allow that more freedom and that time and that ease in your life to focus on your business. When my husband and I decided to do that, I gained like 2 to 4 hours a week back into my week. When you're a side hustler, that's golden to spend that much time on your business or working with clients, getting more income so that you can grow your business. And that's usually the first one that I have people do. And they're like, what? That has nothing to do with my business, but it really does. And it actually allows you to practice delegating a task out to somebody. And then from there, we know, then we look at your business, you know, what is your income generating, tasks, which ones do you have to do, the ones that are you in your business, and what are all the other things that you don't have to do, right? So is that hiring a virtual assistant to manage your email? Is that hiring somebody to do your social media for you because you hate doing social media? Like, what can you do that can delegate out for you?
And this is such a hard concept for people to get, and this was a hard concept for me to get. I'm still somewhat resistant to it, but I also see how critical it is. And when you're starting in your business, and that's why when you're creating work you love, you know, part of there's a beauty in having a 9-to-5. Like lots of people say, I wish I didn't have my 9-to-5 and I wish I could focus 100% on my business, blah, blah, blah. But the benefit of having your work is that you have the cash flow to be able to invest in the things that free you up so that you can make more cash flow.
Yes, it's so
the
essential.
Mistake that I made, I went cold turkey, which meant that I could only eat what I could kill, you know. And so a lot of the decisions I made were decisions that were short-term cash flow decisions because there wasn't a whole lot of cash flow just to invest in the things to allow the business to go faster. And so if you are working, there's ways of being able to repurpose your money. So instead of buying this or that, maybe you invested in a grocery service so that someone else can go out and buy your groceries. That will save you 2-3 hours a week of zipping all the way. Because high achieving folks, you like to get the organic this and the
two different stores,
the Asian that, and it's got 3 different places to get to the cuisine that you're like, I'm talking about myself. And so having, that outsource where someone else can do that, or creating a 2-week menu or a 3-week menu. And like, this is what we eat. Every Monday is this, every other Tuesday, it's that. It takes the decision out of another decision. So think about the things that you hate making decisions on and figure out how to routinize it. So if you hate waking up in the morning and trying to figure out what you're going to wear, get a 2-week uniform. This is what I wear every Tuesday, and so then you don't even have to think about it. Or if I'm traveling, this is my travel outfits. These 5 is what I every picture you see me traveling is one of these outfits, right? Because now I don't have to take the mind share to start thinking about stuff. when the mind share could be put on the business, or that mind share could be freed for the kids or your spouse
Right.
or whatever. And so there was lots of things that I wish I had systematized. And even now I'm learning to systematize more, because my mind can only carry so much. And even when I'm at rest, I don't feel like I'm at rest because I'm thinking about what's for dinner.
Yeah.
I hate thinking about what's for dinner.
Right. And that's like that piece of your sanity, right? That I feel like we lose, because even when we are resting, we're now in our heads about why we shouldn't be resting, the shoulds of the world, that are all going to kill us. But you're right. The, being able to side hustle is a gift. I know a lot of people don't see it that way, but when you are able to, again, all your major bills are paid, like food and shelter and things, keeping the lights on. And so you can reinvest in your business instead of going out and getting a business loan. It's another way to do it is to side hustle, and why it's becoming, I think, more popular too.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing you talk about, and we'll go through a couple of these really, really quickly, is letting go of perfectionism, which we hear all the time. But talk about specifically how letting go of perfectionism is going to allow you to just accelerate so much faster in the marketplace.
Yeah. So perfectionism comes up a lot with women, especially ambitious women, because they want to do it right. They want it to be perfect right out of the box. But what happens, and I know you've seen it, and I call myself a recovering perfectionist, is it prevents you from actually moving forward. When we are striving for perfection, we look at things too long. We hold behind, that website. We don't press publish. We don't send that email to that person because it's not just right. And so it's really limiting our opportunities that we're taking advantage of. And there is a bit of fear that hides behind perfectionism, in that fear of judgment, fear that it's not going to be done perfect. And, done is better than perfect. I also have a dear friend of mine, who she always says, launch it broken, fix it live is her thing. And I love that saying, right? She's like that. Get it out, right? Like if you have an idea, if you have an idea, you have an offer, you just pursue it, put it out there, because you need feedback, right? And so here's the thing. Most of us, if you had this perfect little thing, but you never put it out into the world until it was very perfect, but what if it wasn't exactly what your audience wanted, right? And so you spent way too much time on making it perfect, whatever perfect is in your eyes, and then realize that, there's all these other things that your audience wanted differently about it. And so that's the basis of Launch It Broken. It's get it out there in the beta format, get it out there, start. There's no such thing as failure, only feedback. So get it out there, learn from it, reiterate. Really, that's the only way you can continue on the success route and accelerate it faster, is just think of it as reiterating. Like, okay, I threw the ball in their court. Great. Get it back. Okay. I threw the ball, and you just keep on growing and tailoring. And I feel like that's how you get it perfect, right? By that little tweaking every time you try something and getting it even better and better. Because to me, if you're going to sell anything, whether it's a product or a service, it doesn't matter what you think. It really matters what the audience thinks. And so really just get it out there and think about how you can make it better each time.
I think we should have actually did an outtake from before this video started. If anyone was like a fly on the wall before the video started between the two of us, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. I hear an echo. Oh, wait a minute.
Technology.
So both of us are having this conversation very imperfectly. But I will say, if there's any piece of advice, if you're stepping into the side hustle, it is about getting comfortable with your knees being a little ashy and your elbows being a little ashy, and things just not looking exactly the way you want to. But there's beauty in that imperfection, and depending on what it is that you want to do, there is a market that's waiting for you. They're waiting for your book. They're waiting for your product. They're waiting for that solution to fibromyalgia because you've overcome it, and they need to overcome it. They're waiting for you to lead that team. They're waiting for you. They're waiting for the thing that you've experienced. And I've looked back on certain things that people have been like, oh my gosh, this was so great. I'm so glad you did X. And I look at it and like, what the hell was that? Like, it was so bad in my mind, but it was exactly whatever that audience needed in the moment. It was good enough for them. And then as you grow, your level of what you develop in the marketplace or what you put out there is going to be even better. But I think Apple they epitomize that launch it broken, fix it live, and they have people lining up around the block to get their broken piece of new equipment.
Right. Right. Because they're just like, let's just give it a try.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really good mantra to keep down, write it down, and keep on getting that in front of you when you feel like your procrastination. I feel like perfectionism and procrastination go hand in hand many times because we think that we just don't do it if it's not going to be perfect.
This is the last tip that I want to talk about just in terms of helping to make your business easier and grow your business and decisions to make before you even launch in terms of how you're going to show up for your life. And I think it was tip number 8. And you said, know where your time is going. But I also added, know where your time and energy is going. And really begin to start doing an audit. Like, let me not steal your thunder. You tell us what you meant by that.
Yeah.
And I'll add whatever.
Well, doing an audit is exactly what it is. And it's something that a lot of business consultants recommend and stuff like that. But really, when you think about where your time is going and your energy, like you said, and energy has to do, with what's an energy drain and what gives you energy. So sometimes we get started on a project and the time just flies and we cranked out a bunch of information. And sometimes you're just sluggish and slow on working on a project. So paying attention to what projects and tasks light you up and which ones are totally draining and hard, which will help you delegate later, right? Yeah. Which things are draining you and which things light you up. But when it comes to taking an audit, everybody hates when I recommend they do this because it's not fun to do it, but because you have to really track your time. And now there's all sorts of apps and websites that will help you track your time. But you'd be amazed if you just took 3 days to figure out where you spend your time most. So do you spend it on social media? Do you spend it writing down ideas? Are you creating content? It depends on what your business is. But it helps you then step back and take a bird's eye view of like, where is your time going? And are you wasting time? Which, we don't really want to know that, but we do want to know that, right? It's like that little secret gremlin. And if you found that, wow, I'm spending 2 hours a day on Facebook, okay, well, what can we do if that's not really working, how can we tighten that up? Yeah. And it's just, where are we spending our time? And when you're new in business, we have to focus on income generating activities because that's how you're going to keep on getting more energy to move forward. So if you are wasting your time on other things that really don't matter to the bottom line, then you probably should be not doing those. Yeah.
Right? Another brochure, another
post. You're fumbling. You spent 2 hours fumbling through a website trying to make sure the colors just looked right or whatever. Like that. Okay. If you just take an inventory for 3 days on where you're spending your time, and sometimes it's a big eye-opening moment for people where they're like, oh, I didn't realize how much time I spend on this. Yeah. It also, again, like I said, leads to that delegation. I mean, if you are spending millions of hours building a website because you're not a technology and graphic designer yourself, it might benefit you to go on Upwork or somewhere that, and get somebody to design that logo for you. Like they can do it in 5 minutes, right? I mean, I think that we try to DIY everything when we start out. Yeah. Which there's a definitely element to that we all need to do. But sometimes I think that prevents us when we have too much control over everything.
Yeah. It's time and it's energy. Know when you work best. Like if you're a morning person, that's when you need to be doing your revenue generating activities in the morning because you're going to be able to crank. If you're an afternoon person, I'm no good after 3:30. Just no good. But between 3:30 and 6, you're just piddling around, wasting time. That's time that could be with my child or my family or whatnot. If I really understand that about myself, figure out where the energy drainers are. Is conflicts with your spouse or different situations that put you in unresourceful or unproductive states, because that energy and that vibration and that mindset and how you feel makes a really, really big difference on your ability to really show up in the market, to attract clients, to attract partners and the like. Yeah. So as we start to wrap up, one piece of advice from Gina, if you had to give the audience one piece of advice on how to discover, design, or get highly paid to do work they love, what would be your one piece of advice for them?
I would say that don't be afraid to follow your intuition and do things differently. So What I mean by that is I think that sometimes we look at all the different ways things have been done and we think that's the only way that it can be done. And so really, if you can tune in to yourself and how you want to go about it, I know that's never steered me wrong. I'm kind of a, well, you told me I can't do it this way, so watch me, right?
Yeah.
Type of person. And sometimes that's led me to my biggest successes when I've decided to do things my way.
Awesome. Awesome. And so in the spirit of generosity, Gina has a free gift for everybody that's listening in. So I'm going to turn it to you and let you share exactly what it is that you have for folks today.
Yeah, so I have a Soulful Goals guide that just gets you started on tuning into what those soulful goals could be, which are based off of how you want to feel. I have basically a guide that takes you through the whole process that outlines it for you. And in the end, you'll have these new goals that are really feel aligned, that you can pursue in a way that feels good to you without sacrificing, your health, your sanity, and your relationships in the process.
Yay.
So the whole focus is to make sure the journey feels just as good as the destination.
Oh, I love it. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. And so you're able to access that. Right next to the video is a link to that and a description of that free giveaway. And just click, get connected to Gina, follow her. Her stuff is really, really great. And if you're a woman who's looking to not only just knock the goals out of the park and make the money and, do big things, but also feel amazing in the process and design a life that you love around your business, Gina is the one to watch for that. So we're so glad that you're here. I'm so blessed that you joined us, and we're really, really grateful. So on behalf of Gina and myself, we're going to say bye-bye to everybody, and you have a fantastic rest of the day to your success and happiness. Bye-bye.
Bye.